ready for show and tell?
Mm-hmm.
We've broken it into two parts. We have show and tell, people who have things they want to share with us, and then we're going to look at the Beads of Courage pieces as a separate showing. So Richard, lead us through it. Your name's going to come up, and that means it's your turn. So Richard's going to kind of run the slides, and so who's first is Richard, Mr. Kalish.
Yep, I'm here. This is from last month's President's Challenge. So I was trying to figure out something special to do. And I had this pen blank that I'd been sitting on for a long time, just looking at it, thinking about how I was going to fill it in and everything. And then with the President's Challenge, I was thinking about the Celtic cross. And I've made a few of them in the past, but it's kind of hard to get the wood that I slip in that slot exactly the same depth as the saw curve. So I was playing with some resin. So I don't cut all the way through the blank. I cut it most of the way, as you can see on that one on the right up near the top. I cut it most of the way through. I put masking tape on the sides and then poured some of the resin into the slot, let it fill up. Now with that other blank that I had all that stuff from, I put that back in a little holder that I made, like a mold. And so as I had leftover resin from the making the Celtic crosses, I just poured it onto that one in the mold that I made out of high density HDPE plastic. So I ended up, I started about 4 or 5 blanks, cutting them on the bandsaw, putting the resin in, waiting, cleaning it up, cutting it again. And so, it takes time to do that with the resin, but I ended up with a couple of different pens. As the next slide is the one using that blank. So it's got all the different color inks in it. And then the ones with the ones that came out with the Celtic cross, yeah, that's kind of showing how it filled in all those locations. And I think that came in really interesting with all the different colors. The Celtic crosses, I thought, came out pretty nice. I was a little concerned, and that slimline pen, you can see there was a little bit of bleed out under the pen clip from the green ink, and maybe there's a close-up photo of that, or the green dye. But I used red, blue, green, and yellow. Came out pretty nice, I think. And I was thinking next time I'll put a little bit of the super thin CA glue in the groove before I pour the dye in, so that maybe the CA will, kind of fill in the pores so that the resin won't bleed out. But that was kind of a fun one. And yeah, there's a couple holes there from the yellow, but it came out pretty nice, I thought.
Terrific, good ideas.
That's that's a long leaf pine, I think. And another thing for making the molds, as political voting comes up every now and then, all these yard signs in people's yards. After the election, if you can pick up some of those yard signs, it's kind of like a corrugated plastic, and you can use that to make molds for your resin. And so you can get it cheap and just cut the resin out, or once you use super glue to bend that corrugated plastic from the yard signs into the right shape, then you can make molds cheap.
I import the mics, Dave.
Yeah, I import 2 40-foot containers of that corrugated plastic, 3mm, and a little bit of 4mm. If anybody wants some, then contact me and I'll get you some.
Thank you, Peter. David.
Yeah, do we need to mute everybody?
Please.
Yeah, I'm not muted yet.
Well, you should not be, David.
Okay, you can hear me?
We can, thank
Okay, last month I talked a little bit about mango wood and how interesting the colors and are, and how much fun it is to turn it. I also mentioned that the tree comes with an interesting display of burls. Uh, a lot of the burl appears in the traditional place near the ground, but in addition, little burls are created on the branches, and they're probably 6 to 8 inches in diameter. This bowl came from one that was about 6 inches. Uh, it finished about 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. Interesting wood, and if you ever have a chance to pick them up in Hawaii, do so.
Beautiful wood.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yes. First, my apologies for not making your President's Challenge for January. I had the blanks made up, but I ran out of runway. This is the very first segmented piece I have ever made. So I started simple. It's a Sierra pen kit, and it's a walnut and maple. Interesting, I posted this on Facebook, and I got 3 or 4 requests asking if I sell pens. And I had one gentleman ask me, he collects fountain pens, asked me if I did fountain pens. So I'm not quite there yet, but this was my first pen. I had 3 sets of blanks. One of the sets I really screwed up on. This is the second one. This one I'm not as thrilled with. You can go to the second one. This is a hybrid cigar, but the problem I had here was the Padauk bled out into the maple. Now, I had actually talked to some folks, and I stabilized the Padauk, but what I did not do, I think, I actually put this up at Pen Turners and got some good ideas. 2 things. One, I used good old-fashioned yellow wood glue, and I hear that if you want bleed, use good old-fashioned yellow wood glue. If you don't want bleed, use epoxy. The other thing is, I probably should have wiped the Padauk down with acetone or denatured alcohol before I did the glue up, and that might have helped prevent some of the bleed over. The third thing I did was I didn't know that when you do a pen like this, that one of the first things you do when you're done turning is you blow it off and you hit it with thin CA. And the first thing I did was I hit it with 220. And so I spread that red dust all over the pen. So it was a learning process. I learned a great deal. Like I said, I'm not as thrilled with this one, but I've got some more stuff glued up and I'm going back at it. I really kind of like that whole idea. Jim, you're muted.
It's a hard stuff to work with, and I understand there's a learning curve for it. Good job.
Oh, I mean, and I'm open to any ideas people might have. Feel free to throw them on chat or email me because, it's a learning process. And, I have people tell me they'd never think about putting Padauk in a pen just because of that. So.
Okay, David.
Well, one of the things I've been doing during the plague is looking at stuff I've got hanging around the house. And if I don't like it, redoing it if I can. Now this I found in a cupboard that my wife had hidden away because I was going to throw it out. I didn't like the shape originally, and I just didn't care for it. It's a John Weaver style wave. And so I had left a really small tenon on it so I could get it back on the lathe, and I had enough to reshape it and finish it. And now I like it. So it's gives me some satisfaction in taking a subpar piece and turning it into something that's par for me, at least. And so that's where this came from.
What's the wood, David?
That's Madrone.
The wave bowl technique is something that really has caught everybody's attention, how to do that. I think we're going to get a couple of clues on the process for that in a few minutes. Okay, terrific. Peter.
So that's a hollow form. It's probably 4 inches diameter, 5 inches tall, and it's from the lower section of an olive tree. What is it finished in? It's finished in Odie's. Nothing much more than that than what you see.
Hollowing through a small hole is kind of a problem. What kind of a tool did you use?
Well, that's probably a 1-inch hole. So I have a standard, a straight tool, and I have a couple of swan neck ones with like 8.9 millimeter cutters. And I don't do hollowing much, but when I did this, I was doing it, and then, oh, I wonder how thin it is. And around where you see that white spot, I kind of like put the flashlight on there and said, oh, I can see light through that area. I think I'm done. So it was getting very close to being a funnel.
Thank you. Charlie, go for it.
Oh, well, so this past month were a couple of firsts for me in turning. I had never done a natural edge bowl before. So these represent my first natural edge bowls. The largest is 14 inches wide and the tallest is 10 inches tall. And I thought that the little beads worked nicely with the natural edge. And of course, this is the liquid amber, and as it dried, it ovaled quite a bit, but didn't crack. So they're rather large, and I had fun doing my first natural edge bowls. And then these are also firsts. I had never done spheres before. And so these are 13 spheres that range from 2.5 inch diameter to 4 1/4 diameter. And I didn't use a jig. I used the octagon method without a jig. And so these are all domestic woods. And like I said, they're my first attempts. I really enjoyed making spheres. I had one in holly. It was, pretty plain wood. So I couldn't help but, couldn't resist but embellishing it and with centipedes. So handle if you dare.
Just the one?
Just the one.
It's really neat. Thank you, Charlie.
What
Mike?
tool was used for that nested set?
Excuse me?
What tool did you use for that nested set of bowls?
You're muted, Charlie.
The nesting set of bowls are cord bowls. They're just simply cord and then turned, and they also have the bead pattern on them.
You use the one-way system?
No, I use, it's the Woodcut Max 3. And
Oh, okay.
so I can go from, small all the way up to around 18 inches.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Michael.
Michael?
Mr. Packer, we need your mic. There you go. Michael here?
I don't know. Well, he sent in 4 pictures of this lovely bowl that he did. I don't know what the wood is, but people can make their guesses. It is very well done, and I wish he were here to describe it a little bit better. But there it is.
Here.
So sorry you're not here, Michael. Okay, Gary Bingham is the last one.
Here he
Okay, I'm
is.
here. So I don't see my picture though.
There it is.
Okay. So my wife and I, when we go on tours, the tour group leader, I usually give them something I've made. And I was giving them wine bottle toppers. And I decided that a lot of people just aren't consuming that much wine. So I'm going now to the bottle openers. And the wood is scrap wood that I had around the house. I got the topper or the bottle openers. It's Amazon, and that's gunmetal. And it cost me $20.51 from Amazon. And I did the thread cutting tap, but I really didn't need to do that. But you can screw it in. It's got that type of device with it. And I put it on rocks so you could give you a contrast there, and you can see my little my scale down below. And that concludes my report. I'll say also I didn't have a COVID sore arm when I got my shot 2 weeks ago because I put it in the arm that I was shot in Vietnam. It's still partially numb, so it was a good thing.
That's a good idea.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Richard, do we want to talk more about wave bowls at this point?
That would be a good idea. Let me get that shared with everybody. Okay. So Michael Regino sent in a project. Are you there, Michael?
I'm here.
Good.
Can you hear me?
The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I made up, if possible, I had sent 13 pictures, but I sent 2 of them were of the jig that I used to make the wave thing. Could we show those 2 pictures first, if that's possible? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I made this jig to cut the wave bowl and got that all done. So then I started experimenting making these wave bowls. And so then I decided I made a couple using
We'll get there.
okay. So I made a couple using his original process with 4, square pieces, and then using a piece of wood as the wave. But, trying to find a piece of wood and steaming it and everything. So I thought, well, since I got all this resin stuff, I'll do them in resin. So I decided, okay, well, I'll do it in resin. And so I learned quite a bit on doing these with the resin. So what I found was it's hard to make a dam around the bowl before you cut it to hold the resin in. So the first one I made, I pouring the resin in, and I used tape to hold the resin in, and it leaked out, and it just didn't work very good. So then I thought about it. So what I did was I came up and I cut the wave, and then I cut the bowl or the piece of wood cylindrical so that it was round, and I had a continual diameter, and then I cut the wave in it. And then in the first one, one of the problems you have, it keeps switching here. Okay. So what I found is a lot of times with the resin, when you put it in the pressure pot and stuff, it'll bleed into the wood. And so what I experimented with a lot of different techniques, cactus juice, and when I was making these other resin bowls, and I found that just using shellac works really well. So what I do is I coat the surfaces before I put the resin in, and I coat it all with shellac really good. Otherwise, when you put the resin in there and you pressure pot it, it bleeds into your wood. So like in the next slide, then I had to I made some spacers up so that I could have the wave the exact thickness that I wanted. So I made some little spacers, and then I put those on the pins. I used some 1/4-inch wooden pins to locate the wave after I cut it. So in the next slide, you can see where the holes were for the pins. And then I also put 2 big holes in to pour the resin into. Now, when I first did one, what I did was I actually put little holes all the way around the peripheral of the wave, and then I would pour the resin in and it would come up. But what I found was I was getting like air gaps and things like that. So I had to come up with a new way to hold the resin in place. So by making this unit round and a consistent size, if we go to the next slide, there it is together with the spacers in. You can see that, you know, it's got a nice even space. And then if we go to the next slide, then I thought about it, and what I did was I made rings out of some plywood, and then I mounted those rings, and on the bottom ring, it fit around the circumference of the bowl, and then I used hot melt glue to seal all the way around the bottom. And then the one thing I kind of found was that use good plywood, because some of these plywoods have gaps and stuff, and so the resin would leak out. So you have to make sure that you find that there's no gaps or anything in this plywood. So I then glued that on, and then in this picture you can see where it was glued on. And then that's before I put the top piece on. So now I have this ring as a dam, and then I put the top back on, and then I poured the resin in. And then after I got the resin in, put it in the pressure pot, then I got done with that. Then I turned off all the plywood that I had for the dam. And then I ended up just turning, then all I had to do was just shape the bowl. And then you end up with the resin in it. So it was a pretty interesting project. There was a lot of procedural stuff that you have to, like, you know, I think I wrecked like 3 bowls where even on this one, I was going to throw it away because when I filled it, I wasn't paying enough attention, and I only filled it about 3/4 of the way full. And when I took it out of the pressure pot, I could see that I didn't have enough resin in it, and I was luckily able to then make up a new batch of resin and kind of match the color, re-pour it in to fill, to complete the pour, and then put it back in the pressure pot. And that way I had a complete ring. The first one I did, I had so many gaps and stuff in it because I couldn't get before I came up with using the plywood to hold in the resin. But they come out pretty good like that. I'm going to try to make a couple now and maybe make 3 or 4 resin rings around it.
Wow.
It's neat and a complicated process to get there, but I bet the next one goes much easier.
Yeah, you learn a lot when you do these.
Thank you very much, Mike. That's a really neat process.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, the last thing we have to share, and then we get to our presentation, which I know you're all waiting for, is I want to take a look at all the pieces that have been submitted for our Beads of Courage program. And I'm really looking forward to looking through these. So let's go through that.
So John Lawson is first. Hugh Bevan Thomas is on deck.
What I have here is it's right around 8 inches by about 5 inches tall. It's black walnut, and I had 6 coats of white bond poly, and it's sanded a 24,000 grit pad. I had talked with Larry, and he suggested to make sure that not to use the Beal buffing system. He was afraid that maybe the wax with the kids might you know, want to chew on it. So it's just sanded down.
Nice job, John.
So Hugh, and then Jim Campbell is on deck.
Well, this is just a maple. It's a segmented bow that you can see. And I'm not sure what the dark wood was, but it's a piece that I've had in my shop. And so I glued a couple of pieces, 3 pieces together to make the handle on the lid. And then I wrote in Beads of Courage down here. Can you hear me? And then I thought, well, kids like colors and things, so I decided to get some dots, which I got from Amazon.com, and stuck those on, and I just makes it a little more interesting for kids, I think. I think that's all.
Okay. So Jim Campbell and David Fleissig is on deck.
All right, let me get my mute off here. So this is Beads of Courage bowl, of course. That is liquid amber. I am getting so tired of turning cracked liquid amber. You can see all the cracks in it. But I patched them up. One of them was so wide that I needed to do some kind of an epoxy fill. I haven't filled anything that wide before. And so I went down to Rockler and I bought that mass penetrating epoxy, and I found out pretty quickly that blows through blue tape like nothing. So I ended up using wood glue and a few things. That was a learning process. The piece of walnut on top, when I first started turning, I was driving down the road. I picked up a bunch of what I didn't know was black walnut at the time, and I cut some up and threw it up in the rafters, and this piece was all wonky. It was about 2 inches thick, but it was all warped. And end of the day, I was able to get a 3/4 inch piece of wood out of it. And I talked to Larry about filling it in, which I hate to do because that's some beautiful, beautiful wood. And he says, you know, they're probably going to do a pretty good job of matching the bowl with the kids. So this one might go to an older kid. So I wouldn't bother messing with that. And I actually think the lid's the best part of the bowl. Anyway, that's my bowl.
The lid is gorgeous.
Dave Fleissig and Carl Mercer is up next.
So this is my fourth Beads of Courage box. The base is just a simple segmented maple. And then Hugh and I must have been on the same wavelength because I was also thinking dots. So if you want to show that, yeah. But these are epoxy. So these are cast epoxy, and had a little fun doing that, and it makes me smile when I look at it, and I hope it makes some kids smile when they look at it too.
So Dave, I'm glad you put the picture on Facebook that showed how you drilled the holes and didn't go all the way through and filled that. That was a big question I had. You answered it by showing the picture. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Carl Mercer, Rick Nelson is on deck. Carl, you there? Carl? Okay,
Okay,
Carl's
can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, this was my first one. It's carob wood. No, I'm sorry. It's camphor wood. And when I split the log and I realized it was camphor wood, and it was about 12 inches tall and 8 inches square, and I just couldn't see putting 6 inches by 12 inches of sawdust on my floor. So I love camphor wood. So what I did with it is I sliced them off in 1 inch slabs and turned the center out on my ringmaster. Then I glued them together and just turned a bowl. It's about, the outside dimensions is about 7 by 7 1/4 tall. Inside dimensions are 6 inches by about 5.5 inches tall. I just finished turning the second one out of the same style wood, and I hope to have it finished and everything. And then I'm going to make one more square box, and then I'll get them to you, Larry. Had fun doing it, and I've had a couple of calls from the people over here in the valley, and we may get a few more boxes from the valley people.
Great, appreciate it.
That's about it.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, Rick Nelson and then Charlie Saul is on deck.
Yeah, I started this one. The challenge for this style box is the straight walls and the flat bottom. Really, the first time that I've really faced that challenge like it should be, and it was interesting and got through it pretty well. The top is segmented as well. It's cherry wood with a Peruvian walnut accent, and the top I segmented to make it like a sunrise is what the idea was on this bowl, but I had some challenges on this one, so I decided to turn right around and make another one of the same style to try and cement the knowledge. So this is the second one I made. It's also cherry with Peruvian walnut in the feature ring, and then it's an American walnut handle on the top. So, and the Beads of Courage bead on these two bowls is on the inside, the center of the inside of the lid.
Rick, how did you do that plug in the base?
Well, yeah, what I did is made a a flat segmented disc and then drilled it down with a Forstner bit with about a 2-inch Forstner bit about halfway through, and then very carefully got the right size when I was turning a spindle and turned a slice off of that and then put it in there and then reflattened the disc before I started gluing on the sides.
Neat pieces, I like them.
Okay, Charlie Saul and then Mike Virgino on deck.
Yeah, so so I had fun with this. I have a number of rough turned cord bowls, and often you end up with sort of smallish cord bowls that would be just kind of ordinary bowls. So I decided to use a couple of these rather ordinary cores and turn it into a box, turn 2 of them into a box. So the bottom is walnut and the top is elm. And what I did was I also sliced through the top core and created a lid. So this is just two cores actually. And I used the little bead for the beaded motif. This is elm, walnut, and the little top is manzanita. It's about 7 inches wide by 6 inches tall.
Very nice.
Thank you. I never thought about putting 2 bowls together to make a box.
Okay, then we have Mike Virgino and Larry Batty will be following.
Here's one I did. I was having a problem trying to find enough wood, a big enough piece of wood to make a bowl. You know, the thing is almost 6-inch diameter and it's about 5 inches tall. And then I made the handle out of a piece of black wood. And it, I had the sizing of these things is kind of the proportionals. It's they're not. It was hard to make a nice box proportionally and stuff. But so what I did was I made it out of rock hard maple and then cherry wood for the spacers, and the lid and the bottom are also cherry wood, so that it kind of all ties together when you put the lid on for them. But that rock hard maple stuff is, and then I made the walls like it's about 100 thousandths thick, a little under, about 1/8 of an inch or so. So that was kind of tricky trying to get those straight walls and everything. It was probably one of the harder bowls I've tried to make, or boxes I've tried to make. But it was
beads.
Pardon?
How did you color the word beads?
Oh, I bought some of those little, I think it's those pins that you guys use to make your basket weave things. They're micros, they're Japanese ink for artists and stuff. And I had some black ones, but I didn't have any color ones. But I lucked out because I ordered them on Amazon. I got them the next day, so I wanted to match the colors to the little button and stuff. I thought it would look a lot nicer.
noticed exactly the same. Thanks.
How did you carve out your letters?
I have a CNC machine.
Ah, of course.
So I just program it, and it was kind of, this is a whole nother thing too, because it was kind of interesting, the order to make things and stuff, you know, the lid and then machining the lettering and stuff in it and everything, but it all seemed to work out okay.
Nice. Okay, Larry Batty, and then Jim Rogers is next.
This is just a segmented bowl. I had made a different top for it, but it didn't go very well with it. So hopefully this one goes a little bit better. And I used the other top on another bowl that I haven't quite finished. Besides that, it's been hard for me to sit here and not make comments on all of what I've seen so far, but I didn't want to prolong this too much. But some great stuff, you guys. I'm really impressed. So, and some great ideas. Yeah, I've had a hard time too finding wood that's large enough to make the bowl at the dimensions that they want it. So I've been making segmented stuff, but there's some other great ideas here. So I'm going to try some of that too. So thanks.
And then Jim Rogers, and our last one after that will be Ed Steffinger.
Well, like everybody else, I had to do the same thing. This is maple, and I put my bead on the inside of the lid with a little bit of decoration. This is some of the blanks I had at school. I made another one in the same general shape, but then I picked up putting a little bit of decoration on it. These are just butterflies, maple. The knobs are Wenge. I think they're in the videos that we made, shows the techniques for applying all this stuff. The third one is in progress. This is some of that redwood burl that I had for sale about a year ago. We still have a few pieces laying around the shop. I didn't finish this one. The reason is it's 5 days of drying, and it just barely is dry even now. This is typical winter drying, I guess. So it still needs a lid, of course, which is probably going to also be redwood burl. And watching these pieces today, it gives me a lot of ideas where to go next. So it's been fun. It's been fun.
Jim, how'd you create the butterflies?
If you go through our website and look at the video on my second wave Beads of Courage bowl, you'll find that there's a video there on how I did that. This is that called stick and burn material that Larry Batty introduced us to last month. And I transferred the designs through that, stuck them on there, burned right through it, and then colored it. The whole process is in that video that Dave and I put together. But it really works really nice. It's called Stick and Burn, and it's been used widely through the gourd decorating community. And there's other things around, but you run it through your copy machine and copy your design on it, stick it right onto the piece, and then burn right through it. It does not smoke, and it does not melt. So it's kind of neat.
Jim, when I first used that, I used the one that had a grid on it, and I've looked at it since, and that was made for laser machines. When I went to take the pieces off after burning through it, it came off real easy. I'm doing one now that I use some stuff that doesn't have the grid on it, and it's for the other type of machine.
Inkjet.
Yes, inkjet. That one was extremely hard to get the pieces off of. I don't know if that's the one you used or not.
Dave Bentley went and bought it and shared a couple of sheets with me. It's the inkjet stuff. Once you burn through it, guys, what happens is that actually cuts right through the material. So I burned a lot of you see little tiny black lines on there. Every one of those cut through the plastic. So I had to sit there with my meg eyes on and a thin blade and pick off all those little tiny strips. It was a little tedious, but they all came off easily.
Jim. Well, the one that I used did not come off easily at all. The first one that I used with the grid did, the one that was made for laser. So it's just something to think about as you guys buy it.
Jim,
yeah, there is a laser printer version, and there is an inkjet versions. So when you go to buy them, the site is in Larry's notes that I think we posted. Be sure you buy it for the kind of printer that you have. So I'm sorry.
But
Somebody
I
else.
think
Jim, I tried to buy some online and I talked to the lady and she said the one for the inkjet printer, they've not using at the moment because they had a problem with the glue. One of the other things is I bought some pre-printed ones with pre-printed designs on it, so I don't have to fiddle with finding different designs on it.
I forgot to mention that. Thanks for reminding us, Peter. You can also buy it with the designs already there. Just select the ones that you like.
Yeah, I copied you and I bought some butterfly ones, so I'm going to play around with that.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Ed Steffinger.
During the pandemic, I was looking for something to fill my time. So Larry, your introduction of this program was very good. Thank you. I didn't know what to make, so I made two bowls, one from the round side and one from the flat or square side. As far as the round side goes, I remembered a cookie jar that my mother had years ago, many years ago, whenever I was a toddler. And I remembered that that cookie jar, and I made turned this one based upon my remembrance of that that cookie jar. The next one is from the square side. I based that upon Doug Stowe's book, Basic Box Making. I have it here. I took the dimensions of the box in Doug's book, and his box, however, he made wooden hinges, and as I was reading through that particular chapter of the book, it said that wooden hinges do not last. So I had to come up with an alternative lid for the box, and this is what I came up with.
I think a removable lid works really well, Ed. Beautiful. What's the panel on the lid?
The overall box is made from sapelli, and I have figured maple for the top center there.
Good contrast.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. This is a great contribution and a wonderful start, and gives us something to keep us occupied during the times we're spending by ourselves and in the shop. I have some more ideas now that a ways to go and try some more. So I think, Larry, we're going to keep you flooded with boxes coming in.